have been thinking about, I've been getting back to some people's comments, and one of the reasons it takes me so long sometimes is that I have so much to say. And so I was thinking I could try to make some videos that are basically like responses to people's comments, not saying who they are, but basically like the subject. So this is about the fact that, um, you know, the whole thing of whether something is a seizure or not. Um, you know, that question is just causes so much harm to people. Um, I see it as what matters is how you treat whatever's going on. So how can we treat what's happening? Is it a seizure? Well, then we'll do seizure meds. If it's not, then what do we do? Like, I think that's the reason in my mind to figure out if it's a seizure or not. But there are so many things, a lot of times the way people describe all these different experiences just shows how many different seizures there are. And literally say some of those are not seizures, okay, where the brain is misfiring in rhythm. But there's something else, And so to disqualify them as a neurological thing and just dismiss somebody for them, usually they say it's psychiatric or in your head or something, but that does not matter. I mean, it's still something you're experiencing. And like, if neurologists and researchers would take the concept that we only understand the brain a little bit and we're always learning more, and if we, like, of course we don't know everything that's going on. So if something is happening and we don't understand it or we don't know it or we've never seen it or what it is, that does not mean it doesn't exist. And that just drives me crazy. There was this thing I saw one time. I was reading an article and it was saying that, people, or I guess people, doctors, people don't only understand about 20% of the brain. And I was like, well, if we only understand that much, then how do we know how much the total is? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, that really doesn't make any sense. But what I was, because like we can't, if we only know that much, then we don't know what 100% is. Like, how do we, that just seemed like the strangest thing to say. But what I liked about it is it was just like this concept of like, people have worked really hard to study and understand the brain, and we're still so far from understanding most of it. And that's what I take from that, is like, this is just, we don't really know so much. And what I believe that, and I believe that, if we know 20% of stuff, there's so many different things that we don't know. So whether there's something that is just totally not a seizure, totally not anything else that we actually know what it is that people are going through, does not change the fact that it's happening. I mean, it's real. Like, I think that's the most important thing. And like, I always want to validate people's experience, like I said, because whether it's a seizure, whether it's, something because of the seizure, like not being able to think and then behaving differently, or depression that's related to your epilepsy, or PTSD that then causes like huge amounts of anxiety when certain things happen because it's triggering, but it's related to your seizures. Like, all of that is around the seizures. It's not like we can just separate it, and none of it is unimportant. And, if you have psychogenic non-epileptic seizures, there are quite a few people that have both, different types of seizures, and, epileptic seizures and non. And then there's just the thing of, there are things that happen and we don't understand it. And doctors don't understand it. And the big problem is doctors thinking they know 100% of the brain. And then that's where I'm like, hey, wait, you remember that whole thing about 20% of the brain? Like, you don't even know anything. Like, you just got a little, like, taste of it and you're like, really good at that part maybe. And personally, I have a really big problem with the fact that a lot of doctors act like they know everything that's going on in the brain, and if it doesn't fit their little box, then it is not important. And the thing that matters is that it is important, and that everything that's happening that's causing you distress or whatever, or even if it's not terrible, but it's like all the experiences that you're having, these are real. And like I said, it just is not about whether even it's a seizure or not. And it can get confusing, like I said, too, of also just like the things that are related that then, can get all mixed up. And I don't think it's necessary, like I said, to try to figure out exactly what's what if you're able to get the treatment you need. And one of the big problems is that sometimes you do have to tease it apart so that you can get your diagnosis, because doctors will, if you have the anxiety going because you're having a seizure, which is very understandable, then they'll put it on the anxiety. And it's like you've got to get the other part clear and separate them so that then there's like the clarity that that's a seizure. And part of the reason that this is a big deal is because not everyone ends up on an EEG machine when they're having a seizure. I have never done that. I have never had an EEG. Okay, I've had one when I was 12 that I don't have anymore that showed something, but I don't have any that show anything. So my EEGs just don't show anything, right? So I don't have seizure activity unless I'm having a seizure. So the fact that doctors will oftentimes completely tell somebody that they don't have epilepsy because no seizure activity shows up on their EEG when they are not having a seizure is not correct. And just the most important thing is, like, your experience is real. Whether or not anybody understands why it's happening, as in, like, the neurology behind it. The fact is your experience is real, and if that is traumatizing to you, then that's important. And, like, that needs to be dealt with respect and understanding and compassion, and that's what I believe people who are helping people with epilepsy need to be doing.